now. So we are recording. This whole meeting will be available, including chat logs, for anybody that wants to review it later on down the line, and also to our members that are unable to make it today. And at that, I think I will make sure we got everything we need. Some speech notes, meeting we recorded. Yep, that's it. So I think we can then, I can call upon our Toastmaster of the day. Debra, why don't you take the helm and have at it. The online world is yours.
Why, thanks, Kevin. I chose today's theme as Women in History, and the reason for that is it's Women's History Month. It marks the 100th anniversary for many women to gain the right to vote in the United States. And there's history is not always as it seems. I think all of us really know that. Regardless of how carefully someone creates a textbook. For example, take the work of Rosalind Franklin. Does anybody know who Rosalind Franklin is?
No.
Exactly. She is the British scientist whose 1952 research was integral to the discovery of the double helix structure of DNA. But her research was swiped by male colleagues who announced their discovery to the world and won a Nobel Prize for it without giving her credit. So there are a lot of portions to our meeting today, 3 of them as a matter of fact. And we have a prepared speech, we have our table topics, and we also have evaluations. And at this point in time, who is our general evaluator today?
I'm the general evaluator.
Oh, okay. Chad, will you describe your duties as the general evaluator, please?
Yes, for today's meeting, I will be ensuring that all portions run smoothly. I have a group of functionaries here to help me. We don't have a grammarian for today, but we do have an accountant. Patrick, can you describe your duties as the accountant? You're here? Is he here?
No. Patrick is not here yet, no.
All right, then we'll wait for him. But Tom, can you describe your duties as the timer?
Absolutely. Am I coming through?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, very good. My role as timer is to time whatever you want me to time. Our speaker today is?
Me.
Kevin.
All right, very good. And Kevin has asked for?
I actually have a full webinar to do that's between 20 to 25 minutes.
Kevin has asked for between 20 and 25 minutes for his speech. So I will signal you via chat if that works for you.
That works fine. At
23 minutes, you'll see the green. At 24, you'll get a yellow. And at 25, you will get the red. You'll have a 30-second grace period for your speech. For the evaluation of the speech is 2 to 3 minutes is the time limit. I will signal the evaluator via chat at 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, and 3 minutes. There's a 15-second grace period for the evaluation. For table topics, is there any objection that we go to contest length for the table topics, 1 to 2 minutes?
That sounds fine.
Yeah.
All right, that's 2 votes out of 4. So that's okay. That's 3 votes out of 5. Okay, that works for us. So for table topics, I may just like say green, yellow, and red rather than try and send you a message via the chat. So I will just say green at 1 minute, yellow at 1.5, and red at 2 minutes. There'll be no grace period for table topics. And I will give my report whenever you guys want later on in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. It looks like we don't have Patrick on with us yet. So if he does come on, I'll introduce him later. But we'll all give our reports at the end of the meeting when called upon. Back to you, Debra.
Thank you, Chad. Has anybody heard the name Virginia Apgar?
No.
No.
Okay. For those of us who have babies, we've heard the name Apgar. Virginia Apgar's career was full of firsts. In 1937, she became the first female board-certified anesthesiologist and the first woman to achieve the rank of professor at the College of Physicians and Surgeons. And she presented a 5-step system for assessing the condition of newborn babies within a minute of birth and periodically after that. Prior to the development of the test, in which nurses or other delivery room staff assess the baby's skin color, heart rate, reflexes, muscle tone, and breathing, babies weren't typically given a lot of attention after birth, which could lead to problems that were missed until it was too late. Her test eventually became a backronym for appearance, pulse, grimace, activity, and respiration. So the APGAR test soon spread throughout the US and around the world. And today, according to the National Library of Medicine, every baby born in the modern hospital anywhere in the world is first looked at through the eyes of Dr. Virginia Apgar. Our speech today is from Kevin, sorry about that. Our first speaker is fulfilling the Innovative Planning Level 4 pathway requirement to host a webinar. Everyone is free to send questions using the chat box function during the presentation, and there will be some time at the end for open Q&A. This will be a 20 to 25-minute presentation. Please welcome Kevin Storm Jorgensen and his webinar, Human Focused Design. Kevin.
Thank you very much, Debra. Let me get this presentation going. There we go. Can everybody see it all right?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent,
Yes.
excellent. All right. So you can imagine that there was an addictive activity where the more time you spend on it, the more productive you became. You improve your career, you increase your income, you experience better relationships, create value for your community, and solve the world's most challenging problems, all while having fun. This is the goal of human-focused design. Most systems use function-focused design. It assumes users will take the desired behavior, so it focuses on efficiency, speed, productivity, and usability. Like a factory, users take the desired behavior because they are paid, and activities are optimized for production. Now, human-focused design understands that people have desires, motivations, emotions, and insecurities, and reasons to comply or not comply, and it optimizes for that. Now, similar to a theme park or carnival, you make it fun, and people spend their time and money for the experiences. In a factory, people are paid to work, but at a theme park, people pay to do work. The only difference is that it is work that people consider fun, and that is because it uses one or more core drive. This is called an octalysis, and these are the 8 core drives of human-focused design: meaning, accomplishment, empowerment, ownership, social influence, scarcity, unpredictability, and avoidance. For anyone to do anything, at least one of these must be triggered. There has to be a purpose behind a person's actions. Those purposes all come from one, if not more, of these core drives. The first is meaning, doing something for a greater good. Only you can save the world. This drive motivates people because they believe they are engaged in something bigger than themselves. Examples would include contributing to Wikipedia or school rivalry or loyalty to a brand. Now, none of these things have tangible benefits to the user, but it still drives them because they feel like they are part of something big or have a special responsibility. I've just experienced something like this personally over the weekend, where my family and I went off to Costco to go pick up some supplies. And as you can all imagine, it was a pretty hectic situation. But everyone was really nice and cordial and helping each other out. There was no interest in taking things just for themselves. People were trying to share, and they were all giving into the greater meaning of things, that camaraderie that is built by a higher purpose that we are all trying to endure. Now, Waze is a GPS-based mobile navigation app that relies on user-generated content. Waze would show users traffic snakes that they could fight by reporting information. Since the content was user-generated, some of the map directions would be wrong and take users to odd places. Needless to say, this is a problem. Navigation app that doesn't navigate correctly, well, what are people going to do with that? They're probably not going to use it much and delete it. But that isn't what happened with Waze. When users noticed problems in the app, they would correct them. Navigation correction reporting was built in so that users could fix problems. Users felt part of a system that inspired them to beat traffic together. Waze ended up doing so well that Google bought it for $1.3 billion. Now, the next core drive is accomplishment, an internal drive for making progress, developing skills, and achieving mastery, as well as overcoming challenges. Everything you'd associated with leveling up. Now, examples would include getting a certificate of completion, getting points, badges, or gold stars, or a progress bar to mark your accomplishment. Users can see the fruits of their labor as the bar fills up. People are horrible at processing long-term benefits. We like short-term things. So being able to see success pushes people to go a little further. Now, General Mills brand Betty Crocker cake mix was a really interesting example of this. It was first released as the easiest cake mix. Just add water, stick it in the oven, get delicious cake. What happened? Sales stagnated. The problem was that the cake was too easy. So General Mills removed the powdered egg ingredient from the cake mix. This forced users to add their own eggs. The product immediately became a success. By adding an extra step to the cake baking process, people felt that they were actually baking a cake. They gained a sense of accomplishment, making them feel great about themselves. Empowerment is the third core drive. This emphasizes on what most people refer to as play, being allowed to be creative and see immediate results, admiring the outcomes, knowing that you can recalibrate your efforts over and over again to bring your imagination to life. Legos is a perfect example of this. Humans are creative beings. We yearn to learn, imagine, invent, and partake in a creative process where the journey in and of itself brings happiness. Now, for many years, scientists have tried to decipher the crystal structure of an AIDS virus labeled as the Mason-Pfizer monkey virus. After 15 years of research, the problem remained unsolved. In 2008, though, the University of Washington launched the Fold It project. It was a game where players could modify various protein structures online with objectives like maximize the surface area of this protein. Players, using their creativity and getting immediate feedback, were able to solve the crystal structure of the Mason-Pfizer monkey virus in 10 days. This was crowdsourced innovation, all due to that empowerment. Now, the fourth core drive is ownership. This is the drive that makes people want to improve, protect, and gain more of a thing they perceive as valuable or has personal attachment. Acquired wealth is often the most common example of this drive, but it can also be found in completing a collection and personalizing or customizing something, such as like your phone on a case. There's also something called the Alfred effect, as in Alfred Pennyworth, Batman and Bruce Wayne's butler. The Alfred effect happens when a system is constantly learning about a user's preferences and serving those preferences before they're even requested. Then the user develops an attachment to that system. Even if a newer, more advanced system becomes available, users do not want to part with it because they have cultivated and developed it into something that's familiar. It is theirs. That is ownership. Just like when somebody has ownership over a car that they're trying to fix up, there's no longer a financial incentive as the primary driving force. They're driven by their need to own it and make it better for themselves. They can spend hours of time and lots of money rebuilding this car. This is something people often get paid to do, but since the car is theirs, they are motivated to do it without pay, and they enjoy it. The fifth core drive is social influence. It is inspired by what other people think, do, or say. It bases its success off of the desire to connect and compare with others. Social influence is the engine behind themes like mentorship, competition, envy, and companionship. An application of the social influence core drive is a technique called the conformity anchor. Power companies have begun to use it quite a bit. Power companies, they discovered that the best way to motivate households in consuming less energy is to show them a chart comparing them to their neighbors. Now, users may not think they are the best in the world when it comes to power usage, but they're definitely better than Bob down the street. So when they see where they compare to Bob, it drives them to do a little better. Now, the sixth core drive is scarcity. This motivates us simply because we are either unable to have something immediately or because it is difficult to get. We want things that we can't have. Like if there was a plate of cookies on the table, well, you might not want them. But if there was a big sign on it that said, "Do not eat," well, you may begin to get hungry for them. Now, personal story here. I've been a photographer for a large portion of my life, doing school pictures primarily, what I call the fast food industry of photography. Now, when I tried to branch out into personal portraiture and event photography, I made my pricing extremely competitive, undercutting almost any other photographer around, and did a lot of marketing, but it just wasn't working. One day, I got a call from a bride looking for a photographer for her wedding. The wedding was on a weekend that I already had some plans, and I wasn't really interested in working with this client. I smelled a bit of a bridezilla on her. So I quoted her a price 3 times my normal. You know what happened? She booked me. That is when I realized the problem with my previous business plan. I was charging too little. So I upped my prices by a lot, and I started booking more and more clients. I even got more positive feedback from my work. Since I was charging more and creating scarcity, that drove clients to desire my work even more. Now, the next core drive, number 7, unpredictability. When you don't know what is going to happen next, it makes you think about it. Now, this is a core drive that is heavily used in the casino industry, but it also is used to get people to tune in to the next episode of a television show with a thrilling cliffhanger. I see it in the news a lot. A dangerous contaminant may be in your food. Tune in at 11 to find out more. I'm sure you can realize that's happening quite a bit right now, too. New information from the CDC about coronavirus. Tune in later today. This really gets you hooked in wanting to learn more about it because you don't know what's going to happen next. And there's actually a lot of science behind the behaviors within predictability. What you see here is a Skinner box. B.F. Skinner, an American psychologist, put a rat into this box, and there was a lever inside that when pressed, food would be released. The rat would go press the lever whenever hungry until it was satiated, then stopped pressing the lever. Skinner changed the mechanics of the box so that when the lever was pressed, food would sometimes come out, but sometimes it wouldn't. So this caused the rat to constantly press the lever, even after it was done eating. Now that uncertainty of the food coming out triggered the rat into action that it did not need to do. Now, an innovative use is the Speed Cam Lottery. It is a speed camera that will take your picture if you are speeding and send you a ticket. But it also does this if you're driving the speed limit or under the speed limit. The only difference is the ticket you are sent is a lottery ticket, where you can win the money from those that are fined. The chances were low to win, but it worked great to reduce traffic accidents due to speeding. People would slow down just so they have the small chance to win. Now, our last drive, avoidance. It's pretty straightforward. People wish to avoid things they find unpleasant. Now, a great example of this drive is in the mobile app called Zombies Run. It's a fitness app that puts you in a zombie apocalypse, and you have a person talking to you on your headphones and telling you where there's zombies and where that you have to avoid and places you need to go. Occasionally, a zombie will approach you in the app, and the voice will tell you to run faster or the zombie will eat you. And if it gets too close, you can even hear the zombie growling as it gets closer. So you have to run even faster to get away. It's a great way to lose some weight and get out there running. Avoiding being eaten by a zombie, that avoidance factor really kicks in there, and it is a very strong motivator. Now, I would like to hear from you. How can you use human-focused design and the core drives to motivate? Right here in Toastmasters, perhaps. Has anybody ever used anything like this, or can identify something that you might find in Toastmasters or in your own life that could help in motivating using these core drives? Anyone have any ideas? I mean, we do that a lot here in Toastmasters.
Influence?
Yeah? Social influence? Yeah, here in Toastmasters? Absolutely. What would be, just us gathering together and kind of motivating us to do our speeches and to show up and take on tasks? Absolutely. Mentorship, as I mentioned before, here at Toastmasters, so we get our mentor program going, that's going to be a social influence as well. Can anybody think of something that may be related to unpredictability?
Table topics would be a great example of an unpredictability in a meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Table topics that you don't know ever what's going to happen next, and people want to tune in and find out how the person's going to answer a question or what question's going to come at me. So absolutely. What else? What is another core drive you think that we use here?
I would say accomplishment. So we get ribbons for different activities, but then we also get the different levels that you get. So it used to be the communicator bronze, advanced communicator silver, those type of things. And so you always have this sense of accomplishment. Yeah,
and like in the pathway system now, you level up right there. That's accomplishment. Absolutely. I want to also mention I'm using that accomplishment drive right now in the presentation. Did anybody happen to notice how? Do you see that blue?
The completion bar down at the bottom.
There you go. Yeah, I have a completion bar. If you go back, you see it's been going up slowly throughout the presentation. So I've employed accomplishment right here in the presentation, and you can do that too in your own presentations, and you can do it in all sorts of different and interesting ways. I went with something pretty basic right here, but I've heard of people that have made kind of a flip book out of it. Each page of the presentation shows a character or something progressing through. I've even designed something here at my work at NASCO, a ship being put into construction. Until the end, it shows it fully complete. So you can definitely do something like that and have some fun with it. I want to also mention that there is another core drive that really plays a part here that you may not recognize, and that's scarcity. Now, we have a limited amount of speaking slots each year, and I don't know if you've done the math. We have about 40, even though there's 52 weeks in a year, it totals out with holidays and different events. We have about 42 meetings each year, and we have one speaker per meeting and an average of about 8 members. So if you calculate that over the course of the entire year, each member only has 5 speeches to do. You have 5 speeches to do throughout one whole year. That's not a whole lot when you think about it in trying to progress your through the pathway system. So, because I mean, if you go through just level 3 on many of the paths, you have to do 4 speeches right there. So there is a scarcity when it comes to our speaking slots. So those are highly coveted. I'd highly recommend people jump on those spots when they become available. And if we have enough speakers, enough roles, we can even start opening it up to 2 per meeting. Does anybody else have any ideas on other core drives that are used either here or it could be outside of Toastmasters?
I have one more for Toastmasters.
Sure.
Avoidance.
Okay.
And that would
What way?
be,
Yeah.
well, in the way that if you come to Toastmasters, you are more comfortable speaking in public. So that way, at least I am avoiding the embarrassment of having to stand up in public at work and not knowing how to speak in public.
Yeah, that's a great one. Now that's one of my core drives too. I have to give a lot of speeches here and at work, and yeah, I don't want to look like a fool. So Toastmasters will certainly help you in avoiding looking like a fool. I also want to mention there is our evaluation system. It does key in on the social influence drive, but it also keys in on empowerment. You know, let's say you want to try something different and new in your speech, and that our evaluation system, either the notes that we provide, that each member provides to the speaker, or the evaluator particularly, that provides you that feedback necessary to play around, have some fun, and it's also a low stress environment. You can do something wild and crazy for your speech or for your table topics. You can talk about anything you want. It doesn't have to be on the question. You can go really crazy here at Toastmasters, and it is completely fine. So empowerment definitely plays in at Toastmasters here. So I'd like to answer if anybody has any final questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Then at that, I want to do one last recommendation. Actionable gamification. This presentation, this webinar has been inspired by the book Actionable Gamification: Beyond Points, Badges, and Leaderboards by Yukai Chao. These principles of core drives are all in games, and games happen to just maximize those core drives very well, but it is not only available to games. You can put these into all sorts of things and you can mix them up, and there's even systems in this book to let you figure out and assess what your system is, or what you're using, what tricks and techniques you're using to get into those core drives for your own work. So I highly recommend checking it out. Actionable Gamification by Yukai Chao. All right. Thank you very much, y'all, and I will now pass off back to the Toastmaster, Madam Toastmaster, Debra.
Thank you, Kevin. Let's everybody take. Hey, Patrick. Let's everybody take a minute or two and send comments to Kevin of things he did well in his presentation and things he can improve on when he gives this in the future.
Just to clarify, I did fill out an evaluation form. I got on in time to see the whole speech.
Nice.
Should I hold off on my comments until later then?
What we're doing for today, Patrick, is we are through Zoom. You can, down at the bottom, there's a
Well, Deborah, he's my evaluator.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, hold off, and then whenever we get to the evaluation portion, you can actually give your evaluation.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Kevin,
Yes.
if you don't mind, I'll send you my evaluation comments in an email.
Perfect. Yeah, that's fine too. Anybody wants to send their evaluation comments via email, you can.
Because I love this presentation, and I just wanted to expand on the quick notes I made.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for taking that time.
So how many other people in the meeting today have to have a cup of coffee in the morning?
I do.
Does an energy shot count?
Typically just the coffee for this one.
I do.
You need to raise your mug to Melita Bentz. She's a German housewife who patented the paper coffee filter in Berlin in 1908. She had grown frustrated with having loose grounds in her coffee and used a piece of her blotting paper from her son's school notebook to filter them. And so that spread across the globe, and now all of us use coffee filters every day. I thought that was interesting. I hadn't heard that before.
Deborah,
Yes,
is
sir.
there still, is she the one who started the brand Melita? Because there is a brand of coffee filters called Melita, Melita.
That's not in the information that I looked up on her, but it sounds like that's extremely plausible that that is named after her.
God bless her. Okay, we're at 2 minutes on the evaluation feedback.
Okay, let's move on to the next section of our meeting, and that is table topics. And leading us today in table topics is Angel.
Hey!
So for these table topics, what I did is I have the cards ready that I brought to one of the other meetings. Since we are not in person, I'm gonna just choose randomly for each one and see what we get. So let's start with Chad. So
Okay.
Chad, you're getting the nourishment one.
Okay.
And it says, when was a time you felt the most physically healthy and how did you know?
Thank you for that question. I think I felt the most physically healthy when I was younger. I feel like when you're a teenager, at least when I was a teenager, I had like a very fast metabolism and I felt like I could just eat as much sugar as I wanted, drink as much caffeine as I wanted, and it wouldn't come back to like hit me and I wouldn't have a crash or I wouldn't like feel unhealthy. But nowadays, being in my early 30s, it all comes crashing down. Like you eat too many cookies, you don't exercise enough, you end up getting very, very tired and crashing. So I'd say when I was younger, I felt healthier. Nowadays, I don't feel as healthy as I probably could be. And definitely when I'm not eating healthy, I don't feel healthy, when in the past I could just eat whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, and still feel healthy. Thank you for that question.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you.
Now let's go with Tom. So for Tom, you're getting action. And the question is, what is something you have recently chosen to do more of in your life?
That's a great question. One thing I have chosen to do more often in my life is to listen to music while I'm working. And as I think everybody knows, I work in restaurants and I work in kitchens. And I'm a little bit old school in the sense that when it comes to music in the kitchens, my training, my background is that you don't have music in the kitchens because when you work in a kitchen, it makes its own music. You don't need any outside auditory distractions. You need to be able to tune into everything that's going on in the kitchen because cooking is a full sensory experience. Sight, touch, smell, taste, sound. For example, if you're cooking something, you can hear when something is done and you can see when something is done. Or if you are working the line, you have to be able to hear when the tickets come in. You have to hear what your coworkers are saying. Communication is vital, but all of that changed in the job I had last year where not only was music in the kitchen allowed, but it was encouraged. So I had to rethink my training and my background and my preconceptions about music in the kitchen. And what I found is the right music at the right volume is beneficial to my productivity, and it also can have a positive effect on my coworkers. So for example, what I typically do is use like a steady rhythm, not too fast, not too slow, and I find that that is very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for that answer. Very interesting. All right, so now this one is for you, Patrick. You got heart.
Oh, boy.
And the question is, what memory always makes you smile?
All right. Thank you for that question, Angel. One memory that always makes me smile when I think about it was thinking about my sister's dog. When we were growing up, we had a yellow lab. Her name was Jessica. She was always so loving. She was always so good to us, even when we were children. But one particular instance with her growing up contradicts that opinion of her. When I was very young, she jumped up at me one day and she hit her nose onto my mouth, essentially. I must have been eating something prior or some meat or something. And so she chipped my tooth. I don't know if you guys have noticed, I have a chipped bottom tooth here that has been refractured after being repaired. So it seems like something I'm stuck with, and it seems like that I'm stuck with it, I guess. And she lived to be 16 until last year. She lived a very long life, a very good life. But that memory always sticks in my mind as something I had to forgive her for. So thank you for the question.
Oh, thank you for sharing. So now I have one for Omar. You got the guts one. And for your question is, what is a risk that you will take this week?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the risk I'm willing to take is gee, that's really a good question. Well, the risk I'm willing to take is making well, you see, say I have a dilemma between my two choices, which is well, which is to pay for my bills and or let my parents do the paying. Most of the time, I let my parents do the paying, but when they're not around, I guess I have to take action and pay it for them. Although I need to find a solution on how to pay. Sorry, but that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for sharing, Omar. How are we doing with time, Tom?
We're doing fine.
Okay, so I'll ask another one. This one is for you, Debra. You got cognition, and the question is, what idea do you hold tightly to but need to let go of?
Well, thank you so much for that, Angel. I think something that I've finally had to let go of is that life is fair. Yeah, for the longest time I thought if you just work hard and keep your nose to the grindstone, people will notice and you'll get paid and you'll get promoted, and that just doesn't happen. Or it hasn't happened for me anyway. So that is something that I've had to work very hard on letting go. Sometimes it's difficult because don't they realize how great I am and what they're missing out on? Obviously they care. So I would think the sense of fair play and being able to be recognized for your contributions is something I've had to let go of.
Okay, thank you for sharing, Debra. So we have the last one for Kevin, and you got the action one. And this one is, what is something you have committed to fully?
Ooh.
Something I've committed to fully. Well, some of the obvious things that come to mind are family, my wife, my kids, but work as well, but not as much so. But more personally speaking, I've committed to bettering myself in whatever possible way that I can, and it's an ongoing commitment that is constantly evolving as well. I first made a commitment to bettering myself about 5 years ago. I decided that I have to get a better education. I have to constantly be learning. I've made realized that life is a constant learning experience, and you really have to jump at that and continually learn. So I made that change 5 years ago, and so I've really done my most to constantly be learning and reading and studying and developing new skills. A new commitment that I am attempting to make, especially with the current health situation that's going out in public, is I would like to better my physical self. So I am working out a schedule where I can start working out more and be myself more healthy, because that is going to allow me to fulfill even more commitments the commitments that I've already made, to fulfill them more greatly. You know, my commitments to my family. I mean, I have to be healthy in order to maintain those commitments, and I have to be healthy to be able to learn more, and be healthy to be able to work effectively. So I think I've committed a lot to family and work and learning, but my next commitment is to my body, to my health, and myself, to make sure that I can maintain those other commitments.
Great. Thank you for sharing, Kevin. All right, so thank you everyone for answering these questions, and this is all I have for table topics.
Okay, thank you very much, Angel. So everyone go ahead and in the chat box send a message to me with who you feel is the best table topic speaker, and I will tally those and we'll get a ribbon to you eventually. So moving on, does anybody know who Ruby Bridges is? I know there's a couple of people in the room that might know.
No.
Nope.
So Ruby Bridges was 6 years old in 1960, and she was the first African-American child to attend an all-white school. And in 2014, this is why I brought this up, in 2014, she told National Geographic that on her first day, which is immortalized in a painting by Norman Rockwell, she remembers driving up to the school, seeing all these people screaming, but it was in New Orleans. So she thought, she said in New Orleans, that's what they do at Mardi Gras. And she thought they'd stumbled on a Mardi Gras parade, and she wasn't afraid at all. At 6 years old, I thought that was amazing. Only one teacher would allow her into their classroom. She ate lunch by herself. Her family was targeted, but she did not miss a day of school the entire year. She eventually became an activist for racial equality, and in 1999, she founded the Ruby Bridges Foundation, whose mission is to empower children to advance social justice and racial harmony. At this point in time, we're going to move into our third portion of the meeting, which is our evaluation. Please join me in welcoming our general evaluator, Chad, it's kind of weird when we're not in the same room, but I'm going to turn the meeting over to Chad for our evaluation portion. Chad.
Thank you, Deborah. So we are moving on to our evaluation portion of the meeting. And first up, we have Patrick, who will be evaluating Kevin's speech. Patrick, can you come up to the, whatever this is? Yeah. Patrick, welcome in.
All right. Thank you, Chad, for that. So I'd like to say for Kevin, you did a fantastic job for a purely online speech and really utilizing all 20 minutes. Well, we'll get the timers report for the exact number, but you made very effective use of the time. You organized the presentation very well. You really had a sort of narrative to how you presented the content and went into each of the 8 parts of the topic that you were presenting, the kind of gamification of these objectives. So I felt organization was very strong. Your clarity when you spoke was awesome. You did a great job at simply pausing instead of filling your speech like I just did right now with uhs, ums, the crutch words. You did a great job with pauses and pacing, as well as vocal variety and your inflections when speaking about the topics. One thing I feel that you need work on is eye contact with the camera. I observed that you were looking down at your computer screen. I understand that it's very difficult to really kind of leverage the camera so you're able to look at your script or your notes. It's something I was very guilty of last week myself. So I feel that needs the most work out of everything. Otherwise, you got very, very high marks. Your confidence was great. As always, your vocal confidence was great, which leads to just a more engaging speech. As well as managing the technology was very strong. The only thing I would say is maybe move the camera back or yourself back a little more, because I saw you were making some gestures with your hands that were getting cut off. So that's another suggestion. So to wrap up, very well-rounded speech, very well-rounded content. The main issue is eye contact, and that will come with more practice with these online meetings, as we are restricted to these online meetings. So it should come naturally very soon. One thing that helps me is simply picturing the camera as a human eye in and of itself. So that's my evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
And Kevin, I will email you the PDF of the evaluation.
Thank you. So now we're going to move on to the functionary reports, and we only had one functionary today, which was Tom as our timer. Can you give us your evaluations as the timer?
Yes, Chad, thank you. Kevin's speech, I timed at pretty much 23 minutes, a little over 23 minutes and 3 seconds. Patrick's evaluation, right on time, 2 minutes and 33 seconds. For table topics, Kevin's response about his commitment to self-improvement, 1 minute and 48 seconds. Debra's response that life is fair is the idea that she let go of, 57 seconds. Chad's response to when he felt the healthiest, when he was in his early 30s, was 58 minutes, or when he was younger, when his teens, 58 minutes and 0.81 seconds. For some reason, I wrote that down. Omar's response about the risks of who's going to pay his bills is 1 minute, 3 seconds. Patrick on the memory that makes him smile the most about his dog, 1 minute, 21 seconds. And my answer about music in the kitchen, I pushed the envelope there, 1 minute, 59 seconds. That concludes my timer's report. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Tom.
Pardon me, Chad. I was actually a functionary role as well. I was the
Yeah,
counter.
I didn't know if you had. Did you have anything for the grammarian that you wanted to talk about, Patrick?
I was not grammarian. I was counter.
Oh, do you have the count of any Oz? Okay, go ahead.
I couldn't fill out the PDF because I need permission to do so. So I'll just go down general comments about the crutch words and the use of ahs and ums, as I've heard before. Well, I came in right as Kevin's speech started, so that's my basis. So Kevin, like I said, you were very excellent with taking your time and letting yourself pause rather than fill it with crutch words. It was only towards the very end that when you were gauging audience participation, where things were a little more improvised in your response, there was just a couple very light ums. As for general evaluation and the Toastmaster like segues to each sections, Debra, you were excellent. As far as table topics, everyone was very good. Omar, you've gotten better at pausing rather than saying ums or uhs. I myself need to work on my uhs and ums. They still creep up now and then. And in general, I feel everyone was very strong with that. So that is my counter report.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yay.
And now time for my general evaluators report. We are in kind of like a different sort of scenario where we're fully online, and I don't think we've ever done this before, at least since I've been in the club. And I think it's a good experience because today's working environment, you do a lot of these Zoom meetings. I've sat through a bunch of webinars, doing Zoom webinars or meetings where there was a camera, meetings when there wasn't a camera. So I think it prepares you well for that kind of setting, and we're kind of forced to do this anyway because of what's going on in San Diego right now. I'm really glad that we had a good number of participants, considering it was an online meeting. I'm glad everyone showed up, and I'm glad that we could have easily just canceled the meeting, but instead we wanted to have continuity and make sure that everyone could speak and we could continue rolling on with Toastmasters. And I think like
for a lot of us who are going to be stuck in our homes for a while, it's great that we can still interact and have the Toastmasters experience, even though we're not going to be right next to each other. I would say it is kind of awkward clapping and like introducing people, but I think if we do this a couple more times, which we might have to, I think we'll become more and more comfortable with that as time goes on. But overall, I think for a Zoom meeting, for our first ever Toastmaster Zoom meeting, it wasn't as awkward as it could have been. And I think that we did a good job, and everyone, all the functions ran pretty smoothly. And thank you to Kevin for setting up the Zoom. That was great. And thank you to everyone for participating. And thank you to our guest, Omar, for showing up to our Zoom meeting. So that's great that we have a very dedicated guest who's been, who showed up a couple times. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn the meeting back to our Toastmaster, Debra. Let's welcome Debra.
Thank you, Chad. Software engineers who tackle computer bugs have Grace Hopper to thank for their job description. The Harvard University computer scientist and Rear Admiral of the US Navy was one of the first programmers of a Mark I computer and she was the first to coin the term bug in reference to a flaw that caused errors in the computer system. Although in her case, bug was literal. In 1947, her coworkers opened the hardware of Harvard's Mark II computer to diagnose the source of their consistent error. It was a moth. Hopper recorded the incident in the computer's logbook under the taped body of the moth itself as the first actual case of a bug being found. So we all have Grace Hopper to thank for having a bug in the system. So she's also, if you ever get a chance to look at any of her presentations, she's very, very engaging and down to earth and quite humorous as well. So on to our award. And I would like to thank everyone. The drum roll seems a little silly right now. I would like to thank everyone for saying that me talking about life isn't fair is being the best table topic of the evening. So thank you all for that. And at this point in time, I am going to turn control of the meeting over to our president, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you, Debra. Let me pull up the agenda here. I did send that out, and I will do that for the next meeting, which, by the way, our next meeting will probably be online as well, unless there are some significant changes in the next week, but I'm kind of doubting it. So we're looking at meeting the same place here. I will send out another invite with all the details. I highly encourage everybody. I'm going to actually try to work it out where I can have a room open at any time for you to visit and try out and test out, because I had to do that in preparation for today. I opened up a room and started just trying out some of the features, making sure everything worked okay. So I'm gonna try to get a room started where you can go to it at any time from now until the meeting, so you can try out those features. Now there are a few features that we didn't really use all that much. I wanted to point out we did use the chat feature a lot. I don't know, can you guys see the little clapping hands here and that on my portion of the screen? No. Okay, there, I see Angel's doing it. Okay, there's a little reactions button on my screen. I think some people might have that, where it shows a little clapping hands on the screen, so that's kind of handy to use. I don't know if you saw that there is multiple views available. Oh, there you are, Debra. I see the thumbs up. There are multiple views available here. I don't know which view you have it on, but right now I have it on kind of like the Brady Bunch view, where I can see everybody on the screen at one time. I find that to be very helpful. But there is a speaker view, which shows a single speaker and then I think you can control who that speaker is by either whoever's speaking, whoever's the primary audio, or whoever is you choose. So there are a variety of ways to do that. And so I highly encourage people to play around with features, and maybe at our next meeting, I'll create a little tutorial for us to learn some more features so we can do these meetings more effectively. I'd also like to hear back from everybody on how we can improve our online meeting format. I made a few notes. I know the timing, showing the colors is kind of a constraint here. Maybe we can come up with some kind of solution, either by screen sharing maybe, or I'm not too sure, but maybe we can brainstorm some solutions for that. I also, and Patrick, you mentioned how you couldn't access the form. Maybe we can figure out some way to create a Google form and Google ballots on Google Docs or something like that, so we can have forms ready to go there, and you can fill them out instead of handwriting forms. I mean, we're in an age where we should be trying to get rid of paper as much as possible. Might as well try to make it all online. So I really look forward to hearing from you all on ways that we can improve these meetings. For next week's meeting, also it's going to be, the theme is spring. Could be spring, anything associated with spring, including spring cleaning. So we all seem to be doing a lot of cleaning these days. I know I am. Everywhere I go, it's clean, clean, clean. I got my hand sanitizer right here, cleaning hands, cleaning everything. So maybe that might be a very appropriate meeting theme for spring cleaning, or just spring in general. There are a few roles that we have not filled yet. There's still a role for general evaluator, grammarian, counter, timer, Topicsmaster. I don't know. I saw a few little invites pop, or little notifications pop up. Maybe some of those roles got filled. I haven't checked, but last time I looked, there was some open roles. Please fill those as much as possible. And I want to note that on the 30th, we will not be having a meeting this spring break. And our next officers meeting is on April 13th. Oh, and I have canceled my vacation trips and everything, so I will be here throughout the whole week of April. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't do my my speech today that I was going to do at work, because that trip has been canceled too. So everything's been canceled. But I'm glad we were able to still hold our meetings. And I'd like to ask anybody that has any announcements or comments about the meeting tonight or upcoming things.
Yeah.
I have an announcement, Kevin.
Yes, Tom.
Thank you. As you might expect, the Eastern Division Table Topics and International Speech Contest that was originally scheduled for the first Saturday in April has been postponed until Saturday, May 9th. The venue is the offices of the San Diego County Office of Education, and they have canceled or postponed events like ours until, through the month of April. So the reason I mention that is because as area director, one of my jobs is to recruit volunteers for the area speech contest. The Eastern Division director has asked that I come up with 2 volunteers for the speech contest from each club in my area. So I am looking for 2 volunteers from Azteca for the speech contest. And you can be a ballot counter, you can be a timer, you can be a registrar. If you're not familiar with those roles, I'll be happy to talk to you outside of meeting about that. There are some qualifications that you need to have in order to be a voting judge. And I think Chad, Debra, and Kevin, as well as myself, qualify. Angel, Angel, I believe you've completed level 2, so you would qualify, but you're probably thinking, why would I want to volunteer at a division speech contest? And I think there's a couple of reasons, a few reasons actually. One is if you want to see what it takes to get to that level, and you want to see speakers who have progressed, who have won their club speech contest, who have won their area speech contest, this is a great time to check that out. So you can see the level that people are at, and you can see people who've applied what they've learned in Toastmasters at a level outside of their club. A second reason is that Toastmasters is more than just our club here. You know, there are 143 clubs in San Diego County. There's over 3,000 Toastmasters in San Diego County. So this is a time to step outside of the club. You can meet people, you can network, and you can learn different things by talking to people from different clubs. And a third reason is that if you are considering, or maybe you might be on the edge about competing in a speech contest yourself, by volunteering at a speech contest, it's a great way to see how speech contests run. Not only do you get the chance to see the level that you would need to be at to get to a division speech contest, but also you get to learn a lot about the ins and outs of how a speech contest works. I know as a competitive speaker that I feel I'm a better contest speaker after having served as a volunteer at various speech contests. The very first speech contest I participated in, was the first speech contest I attended. And I showed up ready to speak, and I didn't understand why we had all of this stuff going on before I spoke. And then eventually I realized what all goes behind it, the work that people who put on the contest put into the contest, and all of that experience helped calm me down and make me more relaxed when I actually went on stage to give my speech. So if any of you are interested, please let me know. Again, I am asked to find 2 volunteers from Azteca. So if you're interested, you can let me know now or at a later date. Thanks, Kevin.
No worries. Tom, question for you, Tom. What date was that on?
The date is Saturday, May 9th.
May 9th. Okay. Would you be able to send us an email with some of that information, so and then I can post it, or I don't know if you have access to post on our site. I just want to get this all in this information in a written form on some of our member access points, and then maybe we can get that those volunteers to you.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right. Then just want to remind. Oh yes.
Sorry, I just had 2 things, Tom.
Yes.
I'm signed up to be a judge at the contest, so just so you know. And 2,
Yay.
From a Toastmaster standpoint, it worked really well to have everybody send me their voting for table topics. So that was really easy to tabulate.
Oh, tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Just so you know, that worked well.
There is a voting function. We've had some of the district has held some of its executive council meetings on Zoom, and there is a function. I didn't see it here on the menu that we have, so I don't know if that's something that the host does. But when we do something, just as mundane as voting to adopt the minutes of the previous meeting, there was a little dialogue box that came up, and everybody would vote yes or no, yay or nay. And that would go to, I believe it wasn't the host of the meeting, but it was somebody who tallied those votes and decided whether or not we had a quorum and things like that. But for a small group like ours, if that's what worked, then that's what works.
I have last announcement here. So if I think almost everyone in this group probably has paid their dues. I'm trying to think of like the easiest way. Tom, is there a way for people to pay dues online, or do we have that set up?
You can pay dues online to Toastmasters International, but not to the club.
Oh, okay.
But you're right. Everybody present has paid their dues.
Okay, we're good there. And then I also wanted to thank again Omar for coming to our Zoom meeting. Hopefully we'll only be Zoom meeting for a few weeks, and then we'll be back in person somewhere. That would be great. But Omar, I just wanted, if you have any questions, you can feel free to respond to one of those email reminders, and Kevin or myself should get that if you have any questions about membership or getting enrolled in like pathways and things like that. So thank you again for being a guest, Omar. We appreciate it. And then don't forget, if you have any questions, to email us and let us know. Back to you, Ken.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Omar, I'm really interested in seeing you participate. Do an icebreaker speech and maybe take on a functionary role. We're setting up a mentorship program, so all these options are available to members. So if you were to join us as a member, we can get you into that and really start progressing you through the pathway system as well. So love to see that happen with you. And again, if you have any questions, you can reach out to myself, Chad, or really any of the members here. I'm sure we'll be happy to answer some questions for you. But at that, we are cutting time short. We're about a minute before we have to break. I just want to make one last mention that I'll be posting the recording of this in some format. I'm not too sure where yet, but an email will go out and on where to access it, as well as reminder emails for next week's meeting and any other things that are going on. At that, I'd like to thank everybody again one more time for showing up, and take care out there. Stay healthy, stay clean, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Goodbye.